Welcome to the deep dive. So, I want you to start off today by visualizing something for me.
Oh, setting the scene right away.
Yeah, exactly. Picture M.C. Escher's famous woodcut circle limit 40.
Right, the really intricate one.
Yeah, that's the one. If you haven't seen it in a while, it's this incredibly complex, interlocking circular pattern.
It messes with your eyes a bit.
It really does. Because when you focus on the light shapes, your brain just registers pure white angels, wing to wing, dancing across a dark heaven.
But then you shift your focus.
Right, you shift your focus just a fraction, and the negative space suddenly pops out, and you realize you're looking at black horned demons.
And they're perfectly interlocked with the angels.
Exactly. You literally cannot have one without the other. They occupy the exact same structural space.
Which is a pretty heavy metaphor for what we're talking about today.
It is, because today's deep dive is going to force you, the listener, to look at that image and ask yourself a deeply uncomfortable question.
The big one.
Yeah. Am I capable of evil?
It really is an unsettling question to confront. Because we're exploring Philip Zimbardo's landmark book, The Lucifer Effect, which dissects this terrifyingly permeable boundary between good and evil.
Permeable being the scary word there.
Right. And to really get into this, we have to start by completely throwing out the idea of, supernatural forces.
Yeah. No actual horned demons.
Exactly. Zimbardo offers a strict psychological definition of evil.
Which is what, exactly?
It's defined as intentionally behaving in ways that harm, abuse, demean, or dehumanize innocent others. Or, and this is the crucial part that almost always gets overlooked, using systemic power to allow others to do those things on your behalf.
Okay, so knowing better, but doing worse, basically, but on a systemic level.
Precisely. And this framework, well, it challenges how we typically process wrongdoing. I mean, when a horrific event happens, society's knee-jerk reaction is to blame a bad apple.
Right, we want to point at one person and say, they're broken.
Exactly. We look for dispositional causes, meaning we look for the inherent flaws, the genetic defects or the dark personality traits inside that specific person.
Because it's comforting.
It is. But Zimbardo argues that by obsessing over the bad apple, we completely ignore the bad barrel.
The situational causes.
Right. And worse, we turn a blind eye to the barrel makers, the systemic power structures that engineer the whole situation in the first place.
Which means, if we want to understand how a bad barrel is constructed, we first have to look at how human morality is just actively shifted into neutral.
Yeah, that gear shift is fascinating.
And looking at the history Zimbardo outlines, it always seems to start with language. Like it starts with labels that just shortcut our empathy circuits entirely.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you look at history and you see this exact psychological loophole being exploited time and time again.
Oh, absolutely.
Systemic evil requires the other to be deliberately constructed as, well, a savage, a demon, or a pest.
It's the dehumanization.
Exactly. Take the horrific Rwandan genocide in 1994, where Hutu neighbors systematically slaughtered the Tutsi minority. Zimbardo highlights this one specific case of Pauline Nyiramasuko.
This case is just mind-boggling.
It really is. She was the National Minister of Family and Women's Affairs. She was a former social worker, literally someone who spent her career lecturing on women's empowerment.
A social worker.
Yeah. And yet, she systematically trapped Tutsi refugees, she ordered the rape of Tutsi women, and even provided the gasoline to burn them alive.
I mean, a Minister of Family Affairs orchestrating unimaginable atrocities. The cognitive dissonance there is just staggering.
It is. And, how does a human mind bridge that gap?
How does it?
By utilizing language that fundamentally strips away humanity. She and the government machinery backing her relentlessly referred to the Tutsis using the dehumanizing label cockroaches.
Wow.
Yeah. When your brain is convinced that you are no longer dealing with human beings, but rather with an infestation, the moral gear shift just slips effortlessly into neutral.
Because you aren't murdering neighbors anymore.
Right. You are exterminating pests.
That is just chilling. But here's where it gets really interesting, because that brings us to Albert Bandura's moral disengagement study.
Oh, right. The shock experiment.
Yeah, because it proves this isn't just, a phenomenon born out of decades of historical ethnic tension. This gear shift can be engineered in a sterile laboratory in a matter of seconds.
Just incredibly fast.
Bandura had college students administer electric shocks to another group of students to, quote-unquote, punish errors in a problem-solving task.
Standard psychology set up for the time.
Right. And the shocks were rated from a low level 1 up to a highly painful level 10.
But the catch being that the students administering the shocks were randomly assigned to overhear an assistant casually talking about the people they were about to shock.
Yeah, just totally overheard in passing. In one group, they overheard the assistant refer to the targets as nice guys.
Okay.
But in another group, they heard them called animals. That is it. Just
Yeah.
a single, seemingly throwaway word overheard in the hallway.
And the results are just wild.
They really are. The students who heard the targets called animals steadily escalated the shock severity throughout the test, moving right up toward a highly painful level 8.
Yikes.
Yeah, but the ones who heard them called nice guys, they stayed down around a baseline level 3.
One word.
One word completely changed the mental architecture of the person in the other room. It just successfully switched off their compassion.
It's terrifying how easy it is.
It is, but I look at that and think, okay, I'm going to push back a bit here.
Go for it.
It's like writing a perfectly clean piece of software, but running it on a virus-infected operating system.
I like that analogy.
Thanks. Like, the code, meaning the person's inherent personality, isn't necessarily the problem. The environment corrupts the output.
Right, the situation takes over.
But even so, it's one thing to push a button in a psychology lab because you overheard a word.
Sure.
It's entirely another to become an actual monster in the real world. Like comparing a paper cut to a stab wound. Does inherent personality, that dispositional view, play absolutely zero role?
Well, you're hitting on the exact default assumption of most individualist cultures.
Which is?
We operate heavily on a medical model. When there is a problem, we desperately want to find the sickness inside the specific person so we can isolate it, diagnose it, and, lock it away.
Because it makes us feel safe.
Exactly. It separates us from them. But Zimbardo counters this with a public health model.
Okay, how does that work?
Well, if you have a widespread illness breaking out, you don't just treat the individuals one by one. You test the water supply.
You look at the environment.
You look for the environmental pathogens. And to understand how powerful environmental pathogens are, Zimbardo started testing this concept of ambient anonymity.
Yes, the abandoned car experiment. This is such a brilliant prelude to his prison studies.
It really sets the stage perfectly.
It does. So Zimbardo wanted to see what happens when you remove a person's identity and accountability in totally different social environments.
What did he do?
He takes two identical cars, removes the license plates, and leaves the hoods up to signal that they are completely abandoned.
Just sitting there.
Just sitting there. And he parks them in two vastly different places. One goes to the Bronx in New York City.
Okay.
And the other goes to bucolic, upscale Palo Alto, California, right near the Stanford campus.
And the results were drastically different.
Night and day.
I mean, the Bronx car was attacked almost immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And the crucial data point here is who did the attacking.
Right, it wasn't who you'd think.
Not at all. It wasn't organized criminals operating under the cover of darkness. It was ordinary, well-dressed adults, even whole families, stripping the car for parts in broad daylight.
Just casually dismantling a car.
Yeah, because they felt an internalized sense of anonymity within that dense city environment. The social contract around them was already somewhat fractured, so the environment implicitly signaled that, destruction was acceptable.
Meanwhile, the Palo Alto car sat entirely untouched for a full week.
A whole week.
Actually, wait, it goes beyond untouched. It rained one day, and a concerned neighbor actually came out and kindly shut the hood so the engine wouldn't get wet.
That is just hilarious.
It completely flicks the script, right? It means the environment doesn't just enable bad behavior. A quote-unquote good environment actively enforces social maintenance and care.
Right, it pulls you in the other direction.
Yeah, and when Zimbardo finally came to drive the Palo Alto car away, 3 different neighbors called the police to report a theft.
Oh my God.
I know. The environment entirely dictated the behavioral output.
Which, led Zimbardo to a pretty terrifying hypothesis.
Which was?
If ambient anonymity and social rules govern our actions so comprehensively, what happens if you artificially strip away people's identities entirely and just drop them into a completely novel, oppressive environment?
And that curiosity birthed the Stanford Prison Experiment.
Exactly. They took the basement of Stanford's psychology department, boarded up the ends of the corridors, and transformed it into a mock prison.
Okay, let's unpack this because the audience likely knows the broad strokes here.
It's pretty famous.
Yeah. So they put out an ad offering $15 a day, and they rigorously screened out anyone with medical issues, mental health problems, or criminal histories.
They wanted a totally clean slate.
Right. They wanted perfectly vetted, healthy, normal, good apples. Then, a coin flip determined if they were a guard or a prisoner.
A literal coin flip.
A coin flip. And none of these college kids actually wanted to be guards. It was just this terrifying psychological role-play game they fell into by pure chance.
But a simulation of a prison cannot simply begin by having students casually stroll into a laboratory on a Monday morning, grab a cup of coffee and put on a uniform.
Right, that wouldn't feel real.
No. To genuinely test the power of the situation, the researchers knew the shock to the system had to be instantaneous and violent. The participants had to be ripped from their everyday identities.
Which brings us to Sunday morning, August 14th, 1971.
The arrests.
Yeah, the prisoners are waiting at their homes expecting a phone call to come down to the university to start the study. Instead, actual Palo Alto police officers pull up to their houses.
Thorough cops.
Real cops. Officer Joe and Officer Bob conducting surprise arrests?
And the police did not treat this like a game at all.
Not even a little bit.
They went strictly by the book.
Right.
They charged the students with burglary or armed robbery. They read them their Miranda rights, spread-eagled them against the squad cars, searched them, and handcuffed them right there on their front lawns.
In full view of their neighbors. You look at the specific details, and it is just surreal. Like, you have hubby Whitlow, a completely normal college kid.
Yeah.
His mother is standing on the porch, deeply bewildered, actively trying to offer the police money to pay for whatever street signs she assumes her son must have stolen.
Mom.
I know. While the neighbors are just gossiping and pointing fingers. And then you have Doug Carlson, who becomes prisoner 8612 Bell.
Oh, Doug?
Yeah, Doug is a radical socialist, and he immediately gets combative with the cops, demanding to see a warrant.
He's already forgetting it's an experiment.
Exactly. The psychological weight of the situation was already overriding the knowledge that they had volunteered for a study.
Well, and then they are taken to the real police station, booked, fingerprinted, and thrown in a holding cell blindfolded.
Blindfolded.
Yes.
Yeah.
Only after that complete disorientation are they transferred to the Stanford basement. And the degradation rituals that follow are just meticulously designed to strip away everything that makes them an individual.
It's a literal descent into an underworld.
Really is.
The blindfolded students are led down into the basement. The guards order them to strip naked. They are sprayed down with a powder supposedly to delouse them.
Humiliating.
Very. Then they are issued their uniforms, which are nothing but heavy muslin smocks. No underwear.
They're taking away the underwear. That is a profound psychological tactic.
How so?
Because it completely alters how a person moves. It changes how they sit, how they walk, forcing them into a constant state of physical vulnerability and emasculation.
That makes so much sense. And then they are given rubber clogs for their feet, and a heavy chain is padlocked around one ankle.
Just one ankle.
Yeah, and the chain isn't tethered to a wall or anything. It's just attached to their body.
They just drag it.
They just drag it. But think about the sensory impact of that. Even when they finally get to sleep, every single time they turn over in their cot, the chain hits their other foot.
Wow.
It is a constant, unavoidable neurological anchor to their captive status.
And furthermore, they had to wear a woman's nylon stocking over their heads at all times.
Right, to simulate a shaved head.
Exactly. Because hair is a massive part of individual identity and self-expression.
Yeah.
Compressing it under a nylon cap just homogenizes the prisoners into a single faceless mass.
They all look exactly the same.
Right. And finally, their names are banned. They're only referred to by the numbers sewn onto those smocks.
Overseeing this entire descent is Warden David Jaffe, who is actually just an undergraduate student, but he becomes deeply absorbed in his role.
He really leans into it.
He does. He introduces the 17 strict rules of the Stanford County Jail. Rules that seem petty but are totally designed to break down autonomy.
Like what?
Things like, prisoners must never operate cell lighting. And the ultimate catch-all, failure to obey any of the above rules may result in punishment.
So they can punish them for anything.
Pretty much.
The rules were rigid, but the guards' training was practically non-existent. I mean, they were just given khaki uniforms, billy clubs, and mirrored sunglasses.
The mirrored sunglasses are such a vital detail here.
They are the engine of de-individuation.
Yeah.
Because, eye contact is how humans establish empathy and connection.
Right.
When you put reflective glasses on the guards, you block the windows to the soul. The guard is hidden, they're anonymous, and the prisoner is forced to look at their own helpless reflection.
That is so creepy.
It is. And the researchers told the guards to maintain law and order without using physical violence, which basically left them to invent how to assert dominance entirely on their own.
And if physical violence is off the table, the guards have to get creative to show who is boss.
Which sparks immediate pushback.
Instantly. The prisoners are exhausted. They are being woken up by shrieking whistles at 2:30 in the morning for arbitrary head counts.
Just sleep deprivation.
Total sleep deprivation. So by Monday morning, literally day 2 of a 2-week study, the prisoners rebel.
Day 2. The inmates in cell 1 barricade their door with their beds.
Yeah.
They rip the identifying numbers off their smocks, and they start actively taunting the guards. It's remembered as the jockstrap rebellion.
The guards' retaliation is swift, and it introduces this concept Zimbardo calls creative evil.
Creative evil.
Yeah. They fetch a carbon dioxide fire extinguisher and blast the freezing chemical foam into the cell to force the prisoners away from the door.
Oh my God.
Then they force their way in, strip the prisoners naked again, and drag their beds out into the hallway.
Because they couldn't physically beat the prisoners, the guards instituted this regime of arbitrary, exhausting psychological torments.
What else did they do?
Well, they forced the prisoners to do endless push-ups, sometimes actually stepping on their backs while they did them.
Jeez.
They made them sing their ID numbers over and over, mocking them brutally if they were off-key. And then they devised a genuinely diabolical punishment.
Oh, the burrs.
Yes. They dragged the prisoners' blankets through the brush outside, covering the fabric in sharp stickers and burrs.
That is so evil.
Right. They then forced the prisoners to sit naked and pick hundreds of these burrs out of the fabric, one by one, if they ever wanted to sleep.
It is the ultimate display of pointless, inescapable control. It just breaks the spirit.
Completely.
But the guards didn't just use brute force. They used psychological warfare.
The divide and conquer strategy.
Yes. They employed a divide and conquer strategy by turning cell 3 into a quote-unquote privileged cell. Well, the prisoners in cell 3 are suddenly allowed to wash their faces, brush their teeth, and they get their beds back. All while the inmates in cell 1 are freezing and suffering.
And the psychological brilliance, darkly speaking, of course, of the cell 3 tactic, is that it breeds immediate, localized distrust.
Right. You hate the guy with the bed.
Exactly. And the guards eventually swap some prisoners from the bad cell into the good cell and vice versa.
Oh, that's messed up.
It is, because the rebels feel betrayed by the compliance of the privileged prisoners, destroying any chance of unified solidarity.
I want to pause and ask you, the listener, to really put yourself in that basement right now.
It's a tough thought experiment.
It is. Honestly, which cell would you be in? Would you have stood in solidarity with the naked, freezing rebels at the barricade, taking the fire extinguisher foam to the face? Or would you have been the one quietly washing your face in cell 3 just to get a mattress to sleep on?
We all desperately want to believe we'd be the hero fighting the system.
Of course we do, but the barrel is incredibly strong.
The barrel is so strong that the resultant trauma wasn't limited to the college students playing the roles.
No, it wasn't.
What's fascinating here is how the system completely corrupted the creators of the experiment themselves. The line between observer and participant just vanished.
This is where the narrative shifts from a psychology study to a straight-up horror movie. Let's look at prisoner 8612 again, Doug, the radical socialist who fought the cops on his front lawn.
Right.
The situation completely breaks him. He starts screaming, demanding a lawyer, crying that his brain is burning up. It is a full, hyperventilating, emotional meltdown.
And consider how Philip Zimbardo, the acclaimed ethically bound psychologist running the study, responds to a participant in acute distress.
He doesn't act like a researcher.
Not at all. He does not act like a researcher concerned for a human subject's well-being. He is fully absorbed in his role. He acts exactly like an evil prison superintendent.
Zimbardo brings 8612 into his office and offers him a Faustian bargain.
A deal with the devil.
Basically. Instead of letting him go, Zimbardo says, I will tell the guards to stop hassling you, but in exchange, you have to become a snitch. You have to inform on the other prisoners.
And to make matters worse, Zimbardo's consultant on the project, Carlo Prescott, who was a recently paroled ex-con providing real-world insight, starts brutally mocking 8612.
Seriously?
Yeah, he tells this college kid that he's weak and that in a real prison he'd be sold for cigarettes.
The psychological pressure exerted by these authority figures is just immense. So 86612 is sent back out into the yard to think about the deal. And this is the precise moment the simulation achieves total reality distortion.
What happens?
8612 looks at his fellow inmates, completely panicked, and he tells them, you can't get out of here.
Oh, wow.
The experiment officially ceased to be a simulation in their minds at that exact moment. They truly, deeply believed they were trapped in a legitimate prison run by madmen.
Well, Doug, prisoner 8620 is eventually released. But crucially, not by Zimbardo. He is released by a graduate student who realizes the young man is in genuine psychological danger. But here is the ultimate dispositional irony, like the blind spot of the century.
I couldn't believe reading this part.
Right. When the researchers sat down to review the breakdown of 8612, they actually rationalized it as a flaw in his inherent personality.
The very researchers who designed an incredibly elaborate, massive study specifically to prove that situations control behavior.
Fell victim to the exact bias they were trying to expose.
Yes, they blamed the bad apple. Instead of looking at the incredibly toxic bad barrel they themselves had built and were currently standing inside of.
It perfectly illustrates how role absorption blinds us. I mean, Zimbardo didn't realize he'd become a corrupt warden until an outside observer finally forced him to shut the experiment down on day 6.
Day 6 of a 14-day study.
Yeah.
So what does this all mean? When we look at real-world atrocities like Abu Ghraib or the manufactured hell of the Stanford Prison Experiment, we are staring at the terrifying truth that the line between good and evil is highly permeable.
Very permeable.
When perfectly normal, thoroughly vetted people are placed into a bad barrel, when they are masked by ambient anonymity, stripped of their accountability, and handed either absolute power or absolute powerlessness, the situation can rapidly and ruthlessly override their moral compass.
It's a stark warning.
It is. It asks you to look around your own life, your workplace, your community, your social circles, and critically ask, who is designing the barrel you are currently operating in?
It's a profound warning, but, it also offers a surprising glimmer of hope, which brings us to a final provocative thought for you to explore on your own.
Oh, I like hope. What is it?
If situational and systemic forces are so incredibly powerful that they can rapidly manufacture evil in perfectly normal people, could we reverse engineer this entire mechanism?
Reverse engineer it.
Yeah. What if we intentionally designed situations, systems, and social scripts that forcefully triggered the banality of heroism?
Banality of heroism.
Right. Could we build a barrel that makes extreme acts of everyday courage, compassion, and self-sacrifice just as mindless, automatic, and inevitable as the cruelty was in the Stanford basement?
Wow. Manufacturing heroism, it really makes you rethink that M.C. Escher image we started with.
Doesn't it?
We spend so much time terrified of how easily the white angels can morph into the black demons when the environment shifts. But if the boundary truly is permeable and the mechanics work in both directions,
Then the demons can be transformed back into angels.
exactly, provided we build the right structures. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.